I told you to think of this like a game. Life is like a game. Abba wants to see who's actually playing, like actively playing, like trying to play, instead of just existing in the game. But then you're what we would call in the gaming world an NPC, a non-player character. You're just there to be interacted with by the people that are playing. That's why Scripture tells you over and over again to wake up. You have to do that, though. You have to choose to be awake. Hey, not me. All right, I hope that was okay as we kind of started to do that, part 20 here. You know, some people are like, well, I don't know, I mean, part 20? Hey, listen, you're gonna get something in each teaching that's for itself, even though it's part 20. Okay, if you have a comment or question, this is what we call the afterburn. Excuse me. Okay, so you can come on up and sit down and we're gonna get your thoughts and questions and hopefully some answers. If you're online, you can start typing it in. We do have a little bit of time here. We'll just see how fast and long my answers might be to the people here locally. And now that I look up and see Janet on one side and Olivia on the other, we're gonna be a minute. Okay. All right, we'll begin with Olivia, who's in person today.
Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, mishpachah.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, mishpachah.
Okay, so I don't need to hear somebody tell me it's 2 parts or it's 3 parts, so you're here.
It's so nice to actually be able to ask my questions in person. I have so many undone questions, so I just have pages. Okay, so I could have 6 to 8, depending on how long we need. Okay, 1 John talks a lot about love. And
John always talks about love.
John is...
Yeah, he wants to understand what that means and how it looks, and that's important to him.
It becomes complicated when I think about what we went through, who of us have gone through Christianity and have dealt with the lies and stuff that we've had, and not being sure who to call brother and loving our brother. I feel like we get guarded with that. And I am wondering, is it possible to be indifferent? And indifferent is a very negative word, but I'm thinking that a lot of us feel so guarded in loving one another that we're not hating them and we're not loving them. And if the standard of love is laying down your life, I don't know how much of us are actually loving that way.
I agree.
So I'm a little concerned about my love. But is it possible to be guarded and still love, even though we're not loving that way?
Okay, so a lot of this has to do with getting to the place where we feel safe to be vulnerable. And you guys are terrible at that.
Yeah.
Okay? You're not very good at creating that safe place for someone to be open, honest, and vulnerable. Yes. And that's why we have a hard time getting as close as we could be. Because that closeness requires us to be able to be ourselves fully. And when you don't feel safe, you don't want to be yourself in front of somebody fully because you're afraid they're going to judge it, criticize it, be uncomfortable with it, whatever, okay? And so then we have embarrassment, shame, and all these other things that we deal with, insecurities, etc. And so, I think there's a difference that we can see scripturally between neighbor and brother, okay? We are to love our neighbor, but also to love our brother. I think brother's talking about those in the body. I think neighbor's talking about those around us that still should be treated appropriately, okay? But also the idea of brother is recognizing that you are family. Some of you are just kind of barely acquaintances, not really family yet. Right. And that's not a negative on you, because if you just meet somebody, how's it, I can't expect you to treat me like family just because I met you 5 minutes ago. We have to make the effort to get to know each other. And of course, by family, I mean family, not family like you've experienced in your life. Because some of you are like, yeah, everybody in the congregation treats me like family. That's like garbage. Because my family always treated me this terrible way. So no, not like most of us have experienced, but scripturally what family should look like, okay? And so we have to be thick-skinned enough and willing to put ourselves out there, which is kind of like the idea of laying down your life a little bit, to allow that, you know what, somebody might step on our feelings a little bit. Somebody might step on our toes a little bit in some way, not knowing us well enough to know what steps on our toes or where the landmines are. We don't have the maps of like where all those things are so we can avoid them, right?
Right.
It'd be great if you can hand somebody, here's my map. Don't step,
Yes,
don't step
that
here,
would be
here,
awesome.
here, and here, and here, and here. Wait a minute, that's the whole paper.
Yes.
Some of you, here, just don't step anywhere, okay? All right? So, so I agree with you. I think we are, at least initially, a lot of us start off just barely acquaintances. Some of you have really gotten to know each other very well and have very close relationships. It's taken some time, but I know a lot of you, I see you, I can see how close you've actually become with some of each other that you spend a lot of time with, and I see you hanging out with each other. And it's not just that you know each other here and you're kind of like congregation friends, but you guys spend time outside of here and you become very close.
Definitely.
But we're so broken and damaged that it's hard to do, okay? We are the walking wounded. Every one of us. If you don't believe that you're broken and damaged, then you have back to that problem with the pride and the exalting yourself, okay? We are all broken and damaged. Every one of us. Now, some of us have healed some of that. None of us have healed everything, okay? We still have our weak moments and our challenges and everything like that. Okay, so then when it comes to me having a relationship with you, that's going to only be doable to the degree that we both have healed enough and are not afraid to put ourselves out there.
So it is possible.
I've seen it done with a lot of you guys, but it's done with people that you feel safe to try. Somehow you've communicated enough that, hey, I'm safe for you to be okay, to be yourself with, all right?
Well, I think I guess being in this walk, I've noticed that at least for me, I get fearful of the wheat and the tares type of thing. Like you almost are, dare I say, judging without judging in a backwards way. Like you're like, are they really like wheat or are they tares?
What difference does it make?
Because you get scared.
Why? Why?
Well, and then it makes me think about Yeshua saying, love your enemies. And I'm if they're enemies, it doesn't matter. Love them.
Wait. He went to go eat with the publicans and the sinners.
Right.
Okay, so no, it's not about who and what they are. It's all about who and what you are and how you're going to handle being exposed to people that may be wheat or tares.
I guess you're just afraid to be more damaged, I guess. I guess that's what it would be from. I guess it would just be a fear of...
No, let's just dig it simpler. It's just you're afraid.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should deal with the fear problem. Because you could put anything after, you're just afraid of this, or you're afraid of that, you're afraid of this, or you're afraid of... Okay, so we want to deal with the fear, right? He says he didn't give you the spirit of fear.
Right.
Okay? But when it says a sound mind, it doesn't come automatically. He wants you to develop a sound mind, one that does not have fear. I did the fear of Yahweh teaching to kind of help along in that way a little bit, all right? The idea that you're going to run into all kinds of challenges. I did the endure teaching, right? Mm-hmm. And there's so many other teachings that have to do with that. To he who overcomes, there's going to be all these challenges. Right. But you cannot be afraid, okay? I've developed a skill set that's somewhat rare, sadly, which is I don't have fear because I have confidence to adapt.
You are very rare.
Okay? But it shouldn't be rare. Okay, it's not like it's rare, meaning it's hard to have, but not many people have worked on developing that. Whatever happens, I will adjust and adapt. Somehow, some way, I will handle it.
Right.
Because people will say to me all the time, well, how are you going to handle it? I don't know. I just will. Something will play out because I have confidence that a solution will present itself, because I believe the verse that says that no challenge is going to come upon you that's beyond a way of escape and beyond you being able to handle it.
That's
all right?
Amen.
So why would I be afraid?
That's good, Rabbi.
Okay? That doesn't mean I'm never afraid of anything, all right? But it means that I have a whole lot less of it because I generally have worked hard for 62 years or whatever. I can't say all the way since I was born, but whatever, to develop a lack of fear, but more of a confidence to be able to adjust. Stuff happens. What's there to be afraid of if you're just going to adjust to it?
Right.
Okay?
Amen.
Okay? So, for example, when I got really sick, okay, some of you remember that, 5, 6 years ago, whatever it was, I could have been in that condition permanently. I didn't have any fear of that. I just figured I'd function at whatever level I functioned, okay? Where some of you, when your functioning gets limited in some way, you start panicking and getting fearful about, well, what if it never gets better? Well, what if it never gets better? You're just gonna be miserable, or you're gonna find a way to function the best you can within that,
Right.
okay? And I also have m.t.o.i, trust that he allowed it to happen at the very minimum, right? Some things he causes, but at the very minimum, he allowed it.
Right.
Which means it was something I, A, can handle, and B, was supposed to learn something out of. So again, what am I afraid of, okay? And so if you were one of the few people that interacted with me during that time, you will know that I never had anything but calm peace, okay? Without effort. I'd gotten to a place where, now, if you had asked me, how would you handle it if you got to the place where your lungs shut down, you can't hardly walk or talk or move, I don't know, when I was as energetic as I am now, I would say, but once I was there, I just accepted that I was there,
Right.
okay? I was always hopeful that I would get better. I had no idea. I had no idea what damage had been done, and there was some scarring and stuff that was done, okay? I had no idea. But you have to get past being afraid, okay? And start trusting that you can handle even what you don't think you can handle.
Right.
Because I think if you had asked me beforehand what I might think or feel about that kind of thing before it happened, I don't know what I would have said. I mean, I just would have said, I guess I'll just handle it or whatever. But, you know, a lot of things happen in life you can't imagine until they happen.
That's
okay?
awesome.
So now when you're afraid, all of you, all right, when you're afraid of the person you're interacting with, maybe they're a tear, maybe they're this, maybe you're the tear, okay?
True.
All right? But whatever it is, what if that fear prevents you from having that really great relationship that you really needed, that you could have had, but you didn't because you were afraid? Okay? What if you were the person that was gonna make the difference in that person's life? Forget about thinking about what they're gonna do in your life. What if you were the person they really needed, but they didn't get that because you were too afraid?
Right.
Okay? What if the growth you really needed was from that very challenging person that really wasn't the greatest person for your life, but they were what you needed to spark a certain level of growth?
Right.
Okay? Okay? Years ago, we had a couple of times a person would be coming to the congregation that was a little challenging, okay? You know, we had one guy that used to basically sniff paint and all kinds of, and his brain was fried, okay? And he was clearly problematic and unusual. And so people would come up to me like, why do you let him in here? I pointed at them and I said, that's why. So that you would deal with whatever that is, okay? Because you needed to deal with that. And Abba sent him here, and I felt inspired that there was a reason. I didn't know why they had him there. He wasn't really causing a big problem. He was just odd, okay, and different. Wasn't really causing an issue. But it made people uncomfortable who had issues that made them uncomfortable, not because he made them uncomfortable. I said, he's here for you to deal with that.
Right.
Okay? So maybe you're missing out on some of that because you're afraid. Okay, fear is gonna cost you a ton. Don't be afraid. Instead, have faith and confidence that you can handle it, that you'll make good choices, that they won't wrongly influence you. Besides, how is he gonna know whether or not you could be influenced if you don't allow yourself to be put in a place where that could possibly happen? Not that you purposely look for it, but knowing that that's potentially, anybody in here could end up being a person that could try to pull you this way or that way. So what am I gonna do, hide in my house and never come out? And never talk to anybody? I'm gonna miss out on so much, and people are gonna miss out on all that I could bring, okay? And I know you now enough to know that you bring awesome stuff, okay?
Thank you, Rabbi.
And if you hide, people aren't gonna get that. People are not gonna get what you bring, okay? And they're not gonna get what they need to deal with you as having your handicaps right now and the challenges that you have, because that makes some people very uncomfortable. They don't know what to do, they feel bad for you, they don't know how to feel about you, whatever. People don't know what to do with people with a disability or whatever it is, okay? And so what you're going through, whether it's permanent or not, you know, they don't know what to do, and so they avoid you, they don't deal with you, and they need to learn how to deal with that, okay? Okay? Yeah.
It's just so overwhelming. Thank you. Yeah, you're just speaking stuff I didn't even say or write down.
Look, he answers the questions you say or don't say.
Yeah.
All right?
Thank
Okay?
you.
If you believe that I'm anointed, if you believe he speaks, you got to believe that he's also hearing what you're saying and what you're not saying that you need. And sometimes it's for that person or that person or that person.
That was
not
perfect.
You.
Oh, yeah.
You just got to ask the question.
That was beautiful.
Okay.
That was beautiful. That was great. I'm going to have to listen to that like 10 times. So
but that's
good.
for all of you. Remember, everything in this book, okay, everything in here is a battle between fear and doubt versus trust and belief. And so if you're still afraid a lot of the time about a lot of things, you're losing the battle. You need to figure out how to overcome that. What do I do to deal with my fear? What do I do to deal with the challenges and the struggles of my fears, okay? All right? Because you're missing the whole point of existence is to get to the place where you're no longer afraid, okay? I mean, he's here to not just wipe away tears, but he's here to take away fears.
Amen.
Okay? And I stalled a little bit so Marlene could give you the tip.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay. Well, that was totally getting me off track. Like I had my setup and now I'm off track.
I've been known to do that.
That's awesome. Okay.
Well, why don't you take that and process it for a minute? Let me go over here.
That sounds great, actually.
Yeah. And then you can come back up.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's probably get yourself kind of back together and get yourself clear about what you want to say next. And we'll go over here to Marlene, and we can always come back to you. It's not a problem.
So, man, I'm telling you, this teaching was like, I mean, to bring it back to, it's us, that's seated on the throne and ourselves, and not HaSatan, we're looking outside and it's really inside, Like, that's some serious stuff to mull over. So,
I didn't say it, but wasn't the thing that Yeshua said that the kingdom is in you? All of this is taking place in us, okay? That's not saying there's nothing outside of us. I'm just saying we're here for all of that to develop in us. Go ahead.
So, when you were talking, during the teaching, I was just thinking that's why we need community is so, and I've been talking about it like for years now when I get up here. It's so the ugliness in ourselves can come up so that we can deal with it. Because we don't even know it's there until it comes up. The lawlessness that you talked about today. And we need to have conflict with each other, so that we can realize that there's a trigger or a burr or whatever that needs to be smoothed off, and I feel more and more.
I want to interrupt that. It's not that we need to have conflicts. I don't want us seeking it. We have to expose ourselves to people so that whatever needs to come out will come out, and there will be some potential conflict there because of that. But it's not that we're seeking it and saying, well, we need conflict. No, we need to experience each other, which will then bring out. I tell people all the time that when you come to feast, part of it is so you can rub up against each other, not literally, and irritate each other a little bit in a community setting, because when we're always so isolated in our houses just watching a screen, it's when we start to come together physically in person that we can start to realize, you know what, you're irritating me, or I'm irritating you in some way, and that brings stuff out, okay? And that's where those conflicts come from. Go ahead.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say. Our personalities irritate each other. And, I'm just so thankful to work with you and for us to have so many awesome, irritating moments.
Elder, remember that for her annual review.
But I think
I know what you mean.
I think we've had enough issues, that I feel like we're in a really good place right now, that we just appreciate each other and love each other as people, and I just feel like lately, I don't know, probably in the last few months that I felt more and more connected,
Yeah.
and really felt the love, and really feel free to say, whatever, without being afraid of any kind of backlash like you were talking about today. if you give me correction or I make a mistake, that I'm a bad person. And I think I was feeling that way. I mean, so many times over the years, you've corrected me either, during some kind of event we were having or in the office or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's how I was feeling. Like, you corrected me was me being a bad person. But after I sat and talked to Yahweh about it and journaled and whoever I had to vent to or whatever, I realized that it was correction that I needed. And it was like Yahweh, like Yahweh is not a respecter of persons. And so I really appreciate you not letting me get away with stuff because, like, giving me favoritism or whatever because I work in the office. You could give me favoritism. I mean, that's a thing that happens. When you work at a place, you get all kind of stuff you can do, but you don't let us get away with anything, and I really appreciate that. Well, at least you'll let me get away with anything.
No,
so.
it's true, but.
And I appreciate that because I grew up spoiled, like a spoiled brat, like very entitled child. And I think you are harder on me, or you have been in the past, like Yahweh has had you be harder on me because that's what I needed to realize that I'm still loved even though I need to be corrected, even though I'm not doing things exactly right. You know what I'm saying? And so, I just appreciate being here. I appreciate my mishpachah. I totally feel like we are definitely a part of the same body. I've been more on the path than ever.
Right.
And every conflict or every irritation or whatever that happens between us, like you said, we can be confident that it's for a reason.
Right.
And I know for a fact if I did not come here and did not have to deal with all of us, I would not be who I am today. I'm growing to the point where I can't even imagine. It's been so fast, like these last few years. Like the change in me, I'm realizing is really profound, and it was the things that I have set myself up to do, because I am here and doing things and interacting with people, on all different levels, is why I've had these opportunities to experience myself and change, and so I don't know, I'm so thankful to be here, and I'm so thankful that Yahweh has led me on this path, and I'm thankful for all you guys, and
All right, well, listen.
I thank you for this teaching.
First of all, I appreciate that you came up and mentioned about the idea of taking in the idea that I did something, I got corrected, so I thought I was a bad person. Because that was something that I think I hopefully resonated with enough people that they can kind of grow from that, because that's a big problem, that a lot of people have. Big meaning it's pervasive, okay? People have that problem. Also, to Marlene's credit, she was one of these people that, yes, she would take it hard sometimes, some correction, but then like you said, she would pray about it, she would journal, she would talk to elder, or whoever she needed to vent about, but then she very quickly came to realizing it was what was correctly needing to happen that she needed for that growth or whatever it is. A lot of you are really slow to get there, okay? And to her credit, by the time I find out about it, it's already played out, finished, good, and everything's been handled because she doesn't have it play out forever. It happens within a day or two at the most, okay? She usually goes through a very quick process because she's open to the idea that, wait a minute, maybe I needed that. Maybe, asking Abba, instead of just only focusing on the person that did something that you didn't like. She looks to see, is there something about me? Was there something that I did? Looking at herself, and then asking somebody that she can feel like, has a sort of a handle on that when it comes to work. That would be elder. He's her supervisor, and could say, well, Rabbi, and he would say, hold on, and we talk, and they talk it through, and she would get to see. And so, because part of the job is you want people in your life that are not going to let you just do whatever, okay? Also, for all you parents, will you stop ruining your kids by being afraid to let them know you're not happy with them, Because his displeasure is mentioned a lot in Scripture, okay? So when I'm strong sometimes with Marlene or any of the staff members about something at that moment, it's because I want them to be really clear, don't do this again. This needs to not happen. Now, hopefully they realize I'm not mad at them, but I need to be a certain disposition so they know this, don't do that again. Okay, this is not the way I want it, whatever it is. Because otherwise, if I just walk, hey, whatever, it's not gonna have the impact, okay? Same thing with parenting. I watch parents so nice to their children, I'm not saying be mean to them, but that the kid never gets the message that, hey, mom wasn't happy with what I just did, okay? I disappointed her, or dad, or whoever it is. And so Abba does the same thing throughout Scripture. He's like, look, if you guys aren't paying attention, I'm gonna give you a pretty hard smack, and you need to wake up. Because you need to know I'm not happy with that behavior. Okay, but also realize he's not holding it against them forever, neither would I. I mean, she knows I forgot about it after I corrected her about it. So I don't even know what she's talking about half the time because it was that moment. I made my point, she received it, end of story. And she's very good about not doing it again, okay? And it wasn't anything terrible, it's just something that if I don't say it, and don't say it and anybody in authority needs to understand this, then it continues. And then it could really become a problem if it continues, whatever it is, okay? And so it's either don't do this anymore or, hey, I want it this way, not that way. Whatever it is, that's where authority structure comes from, okay? And the correction that way. But does that mean I could say it maybe a little bit nicer? Probably sometimes I could do that, but that's not even the point. The point is you should know that this needs to not happen that way. Okay? Somehow that has to be communicated. And I watch parents sometimes trying to get their child to stop doing something. It's like you haven't communicated in the slightest that you really care what he's doing. That kid, you're just trying to get him to stop and you're being so gentle. You know what? How about letting that kid know real quickly, that stops right now, okay? But you guys are like, and then you're like, well, they don't listen. Well, because you don't make them do that. You don't do that. You're not strong. My children learned because I was consistent from the beginning, okay? That they didn't push any boundaries. Once I said, this is this, that was it, okay? Mom, not always the same. Mom was, because mom's got hearts that way and everything, the children would try to play on that a little bit, right? They wouldn't play with me because I said, don't play that. I said, no, it's no. If I said, you're not having this for a week, don't ask me. If you ask me, it's gonna be 2 weeks. And I was consistent, okay? And they never, ever, after that first time, asked me to shorten a punishment, okay? Some of you are like, wow, but I was consistent. And if they ever came up to me and said, excuse me, are you asking? They were like, no. Because you gotta be not a liar. You gotta tell, you can't say something and not follow it up. Some of you parents out there will say to your child, okay, no more phone for 2 days. And then an hour later, they have it back. That kid isn't believing anything you say. If I took anything away from my kid, they didn't get it back until I said I was giving it back, okay? And they knew not to ask. I said, don't even ask. That's your punishment, deal with it, all right? And they did great with that, but I was consistent. And Marlene knows now, since she's been working for me for a while, that I've been consistent. And she also knows that I, take her apologies very well, and I say, no problem. I'm like, I don't even know why you're apologizing, just stop doing the thing that I said stop doing, or do it this way, whatever it is. But she's been very humble to learn and to grow and everything else, and that's good for her, okay? Excellent.
Yeah, and now that when you said all that you said, I'm realizing that I really appreciate the strength that you gave me. It was really from Yahweh because I needed to know that someone could be strong with me and still love me. Someone can be strong with me because I think it's a thing in the back of my mind, probably from childhood, that, oh my gosh, you're upset with me or I disappointed you or whatever, and you're never gonna love me or you're never gonna want to be around me again or, whatever.
And that could be the same thing we talked about as far as with Yahweh, where if you think, well, I disappointed him, why would he ever love me? If that's been your experience, then you really have a hard time thinking that he loves you if you disappointed him. That has to heal, okay?
Yeah, and now that I think about it, I think I can pinpoint some childhood trauma.
Well, there you go. Which is why if you ask my children, well, not that you shouldn't do that, whatever. But I mean, when my children did at 5, 6, 8 years old, whatever, do something, after the punishment was done, I made sure that they knew, I love you. It's over, it's handled, we talked about it, hopefully we fix this problem, but that they don't feel rejected, okay? That they don't feel scorned in some sort of like they lost my love, okay? And I didn't treat them horribly or any different for the rest of the week when I took the one item away. I just said, well, you don't get that item for the week, or whatever it is, or a couple of days, whatever it was. But I still showed them that I still love them, and then life goes on, okay? Just don't do that thing that got you in trouble in the first place. you know. And so how we deal with people is we have to make sure that we are still communicating that we do love them. That's part of community, even if they do disappoint us sometimes, even if we have an issue. All right, but we got to work through the issue. Why should we lose relationships over the nonsense we lose relationships over? Because it happens all the time. I mean, I can't believe some of the people that have been here and left. I wish they would never have left. And some people have come back, and I'm so happy they did. Okay, so smiling at somebody, but you know, okay, because we do have relationships and we love them, and they loved us, hopefully. And you know, it's so sad that relationships end over really what I think most of the time is probably just stuff that didn't need to be that way, you know. All right, anything else?
I had something else, but it went out of my head already. So just thank you for, you know, everything you said. And now I realize more and more that, I was going to say something about what Olivia was saying about the fear. And what I had been trying to practice was letting the mind of Yeshua be in me. And then, you know, I won't allow the other person to affect my love or the demonstration of my love, you know, that, because I think all the time when I feel that way where I'm afraid to put myself out there, I think about, Judas and how none of them knew which one was the one that was going to betray Yeshua. So he treated them, he loved Judas, just like he loved the other ones who weren't betraying him, you know, and then they all kind of did betray him when they left him, you know, but, you know.
Wait, let me just say this. This is something that I try to do with a lot of you guys. I try to do this myself. Why was he able to love Peter when he was struggling, or Judas when he was struggling? It's because he accepted that that's who they are, without expecting them to be something they weren't, okay? Some of you have a real problem with somebody because they're not what you want them to be, instead of loving them as they are. And that's kind of hard, okay? He knew Judas was Judas. He knew Judas was going to do whatever, but he still loved Judas with all of his flaws and everything else, okay? Just like he loves you with all your mess. All right, that's an important thing. But he was able to accept them, that this is them just being them. Some of you get real mad at me all the time, I'm just being me, all right? And by the way, I like something you said, which some of you people really, I want you to hear this. Most of you have not experienced a strong man that was not really actually being harsh, mean, and didn't love you. You just haven't had a strong love male role, okay? And that's really hampered and handicapped a lot of people because they don't know how to deal with that. And so when I come out strong, they immediately assume I'm being harsh, mean, this, that, or the other thing, when I'm not. But they don't know what else to interpret that is. Or when I'm so confident, they think I'm cocky when I'm just confident. But they've not seen somebody who's strong and confident without it being arrogant and cocky. So I get called arrogant and cocky because they don't have much examples to really match that to, okay? And so I've had a lot of women have a lot of problems with our ministry over the last 25 years because they were very strongly dominant. Their husbands were very weak and they dominated their husbands. They dominated other men in their life. Then they banged up against me and they're like, I'm like, that doesn't work here. And they didn't know what to do with that because they were used to just, you know, having their way. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's like the Jezebel thing kind of bounced off. I'm like, okay, so what? You know, that doesn't fly here. But sadly, there's just not enough. We need men to be strong but loving. Okay, strong but compassionate, but strong. Okay? Strong doesn't mean brute. It doesn't mean, this bravado and thing. It just means strong. All right? And so maybe we don't know what that looks like and how to get there. But there's books out there and other things that talk about it. But becoming a strong person who knows who he is, okay, and understands the role for you. And so when I've been strong, I'm glad that you realize eventually that it's because I love you and I want you to do well, And not because I'm being harsh, just because I'm some dominant dictator guy, but because this is what I need to be done a certain way, and you need to learn how to follow directions, like we all need to learn how to follow directions, et cetera, and all that kind of stuff. So, okay?
Yes, and I am starting to accept people for who they are and love them right where they are.
Yeah.
And not have an expectation that they should be different, and I think that's really freed me up to really love people more and feel more like the body. Because I think if we just have an expectation that people are supposed to act a certain way, I mean, even we don't act, this perfect, ideal way that we expect other people to act, and so, I mean, we can expect, we expect a certain response to whatever, and then when it doesn't happen, we could take offense and start looking at ourselves and, well, I guess that is where it comes from, is that we feel insecure or whatever in ourselves. And so when somebody says something, instead of seeing it as just them being them, we take offense because it's something in us that we already feel insecure about, that they're triggering or whatever,
Well, there's also another piece of it. That's completely true. But the other piece is, you said something really profound. I said it also, but I wanted the fact people hear you said it. The ability to accept somebody as they are. Now, let me explain what the key is here. You can't do that if you're always measuring them against something. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because now you're going to say they fall short here and they're not acting this way and I expected that, instead of accepting them as they are, okay? If you're measuring them against something, you can't do that. So usually we measure them through our own judgment seat of what they should be or how they should be or how that relationship should be or what that role should be. You understand what I'm saying? Instead of just accepting them. So some of you are like, well, I expect my pastor, rabbi to be this, this, and this. Well, but that's not me. And if it's not me, are you accepting me as I am? Or I'm expecting my friend that I meet in the congregation to act a certain way, but this person I met in the congregation didn't act exactly that way. Because you're measuring them against something. Well, that's for him, not for you. You should be aware of them so you can adjust to them by being aware of how they are and learning about them, and so you can observe, learn, adjust, as I've taught you so many times. But just accepting them as they are, you can't do if you're measuring them against something. Okay, he measures against, not you. He measures us against Yeshua. He measures us against his standards, not us. We don't do that. You can measure yourself against that standard. Stop doing it to other people. Okay? You're disappointed because they're not matching something that you're measuring them against. Stop measuring them. Accept them, and that's who they are. That's what they are. Okay? Good.
Yeah, and that's really good about the measuring stick. And now I'm realizing, as you say that, the measuring stick is this ideal person that's not even real. Like this weird, like, oh, this is, and then, what I think is funny is that I might think it's such a double standard, because it's like, oh, I expect you to act this ideal way, but I wouldn't even act that ideal way. It's like, who acts that ideal way? So anyway, I think that's really good. This has been a wonderful teaching, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. Look, I want to add one more thing to that, okay? When we are also this ideal standard thing, I want to talk to married people first, okay? You are making a tremendous mistake comparing your spouse to some other person. Okay, if you're the man, don't ever compare your wife to other wives. If you're a wife, don't compare your husband to other men, other husbands, because first of all, you don't know them. You're looking at what little you've seen in public, maybe catching them in their best thing while your husband struggles in that, whatever it is, and you're comparing. Stop comparing. If you actually were married to that other person's husband or wife or whatever, you might not think they were so wonderful. Everybody's tough. Everybody's challenging. Everybody has their own issues. So why do you compare? Never, ever compare your spouse to somebody else's spouse, okay? Now, if you're single, don't compare one friend compared to a different friend, all right? Because they're not the same people. They're different people. So one will treat you one way, one will treat you slightly differently in another way. Don't compare people and measure them against each other. They each are who they are, Okay, but if I could get you married couples especially, well, you know, so-and-so's wife doesn't do that, or so-and-so's husband does that. You know, don't ever do that. That's, first of all, that's brutal to anybody who has any insecurities. They're gonna really be messed up hearing that. And nobody can meet that standard because you're comparing the delusion in your mind of whatever you think you see to what the reality is. You don't know what the reality is. Because if you know that person's spouse that well, that's a problem. Okay? So that means that you really don't know them, all right? So you're just taking what you see and what you know about yours, but what you think you know about the other one. And it's not that reality, okay? It's not fair. It's not a fair comparison, all right? And even if that person is wonderful in that area and your husband isn't, there's other areas that he's not so wonderful as other guy that you don't know about, okay? Because you really don't know them. Everybody's got issues, okay? Be careful how you measure up people.
With all respect, gratitude, and mush that you've left of us, could we hear from Elder talk to us a little bit more instead?
What do you mean by that?
It's a joke, Moshe, the people. I feel like a good Israelite right now. I don't need to hear directly from you. Maybe a little bit of a buffer between would be helpful.
No, it's a joke. It's funny because we had a guy call the other day and he was like, he didn't want to talk to me. He was like, let me talk to Elder Billy instead. He was like, I don't want to talk to you. Actually, he said, let me talk to William. So we already knew we had a challenge. It's like, Steve, I don't want to talk to you. Let me talk to William. Pastor. He kept calling me pastor. I said, I'm not a pastor. Anyway, but okay, so your point was this is too direct feeling.
It seems like you've leveled up the anointing volume that's coming down or something. Anyway.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, as I said, with all gratitude, the mush that is left. Okay, so.
Look, hold on. I hope people understand and appreciate the tool that he has me to be is to get you to deal with you. And most ministries don't do that, all right? For whatever reason, that seems to be what he's always had me do, is to get you to actually open up and deal with you, all right? And that's exciting, scary, and a mess, and hard, and all the other good and bad and everything in between. But that's what we need, is somebody finally to help us look at ourselves and deal with ourselves and function that way. And so that's what he has me doing. Go ahead.
Okay, so you had a couple of comments that hopefully spark you into many teachings or you expound upon. You talked about loving each other as he has loved us. And so many of us are struggling just to love ourselves, but that would be the next level of, do we love ourselves as he loves us?
Okay, so we already kind of covered this indirectly. What is it going to take to love yourself is going to start off with what we said earlier, which is accepting you. Okay, he accepts you as you are. He expects you not to stay that way, but he accepts you. Do you accept yourself? See, a lot of you are just miserably looking at yourself saying, I can't accept that this is who I am. I can't accept these weaknesses. I can't accept these flaws. No, accept this is you now. It's not the permanent you, but this is you. You have to embrace that this is who you are, because he embraces you as you are, hoping and challenging you to be more, right? But you have to first accept yourself as you are, okay?
And then the other thing you started talking about with that you have confidence that you'll figure it out. Would it be fair to say, and I know fear is the false evidence of things that seem real, but a lot of times it's born out of a real concern that maybe the subconscious is bringing up. Would it be fair to say that those of us that don't have confidence that we'll figure it out are because we don't observe well enough, so we don't do the learning and adjusting?
Maybe a little bit. I think more of the problem is that because of your fear, you're not trying. So then you don't have any experience with it, okay? The reality is very little, okay? Very little that you could do in life wrong is super long-term challenging and wrecks your whole life, okay? Almost anything that you can do that you try and you took a shot at and it didn't work right is fixable, all right? But you have this fear that it's not fixable, is that you're a bad person, or that you're a failure, or that people will be disappointed in you and then they're gonna reject you. There's other reasons why you don't try. It's not because you're afraid it won't work. You're afraid of the ramifications of it not working, not the damage it does in itself, but the way people might look at you, or the way you'll look at you, or you might be treated. Does that make any sense? Okay? Because the thing itself, trying it and failing at it, it might cost you money, it might break something. All these things are fixable, maybe inconvenient and take a minute, whatever, but it's not horrible, okay? I mean, unless you're going to like permanently damage your body or something, or permanently, you know what I'm saying? It's all things can be overcome and handled. You're more afraid, and I know you a little bit, so I know that you fit into the category of a lot of these people. You're more afraid of how people will look at you if you've tried and failed, look at you if you tried and it went bad or went wrong or caused somebody some sort of problem, whatever. So you don't try out of that fear more than, well, if it goes wrong, how will I handle it? Well, you'll handle it. That's not a problem. Everybody does. It's how will you handle how you think of yourself or how others might think of you. That's the problem, okay?
Well, I believe all of that's in there. I'm wondering if there's a root of the lazy. I'd rather, whether it's the J, I want to just put it in a box and leave it. It's like I want to just put the food in the crock pot and walk away. I want to be asleep, basically. That lazy thinking. To the observe, learn, adjust, that's an always awake state.
Right.
And that, I think, is the part I've been lazy in, and then that hurts the confidence because you can't do that.
Right.
It doesn't work.
There's a desire, there's a complacency or a desire to be in a state of complacency where I don't have to worry about it, I just leave it and walk. Yeah, that's a problem. Look, I told you to think of this like a game, like life is like a game. And Abba wants to see who's actually playing, like actively playing, like trying to play, instead of just existing in the game, okay? Because you could just exist in the game. But then you're what we would call in the gaming world an NPC, a non-player character. You're just there to be interacted with by the people that are playing, okay? And so, yes, you have to, that's why Scripture tells you over and over again to wake up. You have to do that, though. You have to choose to be awake. Why is my energy level the way it is? I don't know, maybe some of it's biological, but some of it's because I'm very awake. And being very awake, I'm always playing the game of life. I'm working, growing, doing whatever I've got in this finite time that I have to do, okay? And that's your choice, though, okay? You can exist, horrible choice, or you can live. But living people are awake. Existing people are just walking through life in a coma, all right? They're just kind of existing, okay? That's a choice you have to make. He's watching decisions is what he watches you do, right? You're here to make decisions. Go ahead.
And then what you were talking about with the exalting against him and sitting on his throne, I found a very subtle but extremely insidious that the blue exalts its will, that nothing should ever go wrong. But if he allowed, who am I to try to fix things so nothing goes wrong? That's me putting myself on that throne in his temple.
To some degree. And look, for those of you that are blue, you're gonna have to get to that place where you can recognize that if something goes wrong, it's not a failure necessarily. Yeah, sure, there are some things that are preventable, but you can't prevent everything, okay? And so you can't get that overly upset about things when they do go wrong. Things do occasionally go wrong, no matter what you did, in unpredictable ways, all right? So you can't predict everything, except that if you're a blue personality, your belief system has in it, nothing should ever go wrong, because everything should be thought about, prevented, and whatever, but you can't. Okay, just can't. Now, make the effort, because then less things will go wrong, and that's good. But you don't, see, the problem is you guys don't have enough peace when it does. Because now you think that you want to beat yourself up or somebody else up for letting it happen or allowing it, but things happen. Time and chance happen to all. Solomon told us that, all right? Go ahead.
And then last, talking about the signs and wonders, can you, from the perspective of fear, has evidence, worry has its false evidence. how many signs, what you said about how many signs do you need? And he tells us over and over again to remember what he's done, remember who he is. How do we make that louder than the evidence and the false signs that we so easily are? They're so much more real to us than who he is. But
You just answered the question by making it more real. Okay, it's focus. All right, it's focus. Look, except for a very few of you, like my daughter maybe, and maybe one other child that's here, whatever, you guys are here by choice, and you made that choice because of experiences of signs and wonders. All right? You're in this walk. I'm not just saying just here in Tennessee, although probably that's part of it too, because you lifted up your whole life and moved yourself here, right? But that's because you had some very real experiences. Because, like I said, my daughter's in the, here mostly because I raised her, but then she had her own beliefs and her own things, but still the rest of you were not doing this your whole life. Okay, she was. You made choices. Why? Because of signs and wonders, experiences, things where he revealed himself to you. Amen? Okay, if that is not maintained in your focus, then it can get less real to you than other things that become more real. Negative experiences, negative emotions tend to be more powerful in our psyche if we don't defend against that, and they can overwhelm us and be more real. Then the fear becomes more real, the unknown becomes more real, the delusional stuff that's happening becomes more real. But we give it that life because we choose to focus on it, okay? Focus on the problem and not the solution type of thing, okay?
Rabbi, thank you. I really appreciate this teaching. And even what you just said right now, and that's actually how I think you opened today when you were talking about HaSatan going after the wicked, the weak-minded, the ones who are weak and the ones who are destructive. And I so much related with what you said about who opposes and exalts himself above all.
Wait, hold on. But that's exactly the answer to what I just gave. Okay, if you're distracted by negative experiences, other things that are not going right in life, you become that prey. Okay? Okay, if you are distracted by negative things happening in your life, things that are not going ideally the way you want, or you're struggling, whatever it is, that becomes your focus, and then you can become prey because now you're not focused on what you need to be focused on. Keep your eyes on Yeshua. Keep your eyes on the above. All right, go ahead.
Absolutely. So true, right? I mean, it's just, you cannot explain it even better than that. And I really like what you say, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called Elohim, because we know what we're supposed to be doing. We have a good teacher. Someone has been following you for a while, so we know, okay, what we're supposed to be doing. But because of all the emotions that we can get into, this emotional turmoil that eventually it can become kind of a black hole that it pulls you in, and you're just not thinking anything else. You're not thinking any more of the truth, right? We're supposed to be focusing on the truth and to bring us back to our reality. This is not this. You need to change this, right? And that's where I found myself this week, Rabbi. And it's amazing how Yahweh knows what to tell us when we come to Torah study or Shabbat, because it so much connects with our reality week in, week out, right?
Right.
And so I really, really appreciate what you share with us today. And I had to humble myself, and I had to go within, because the answers are within ourselves. If we're able to really look at our weaknesses, what Marlene said about your traumas from your childhood, and they do some deep work, which I had to do this week, to get to the place where I'm actually now connected to the vine and having the spirit that I want to be like him. And it's a lot of work, but I so much appreciate and so much resonated with what Marlene said, the community and the trials, because without our community, we will be thinking delusionally we're fine, and we're not. Right. Obviously, we're not. And so, even though the trials can be hard, it's taking out that darkness and almost like mold-looking ugliness in our hearts so that we can actually become who he wants us to be.
Right.
And so I'm just so humbling. I mean, I've been humbled by him this week. And I feel like this was a great teaching, Rabbi.
I appreciate
and it really encouraged me. So thank you for that.
Okay, so let me just you said about the answers coming from within. Okay, the answers don't come from within to the solutions. The answers for the solutions come from the above.
Right.
What comes from within is identifying the challenges, being open with yourself. If you want to really know what you're struggling with, it's in you somewhere. You have to look for it in you. The solutions, okay, what you need to do and everything comes from outside, and you bring it in, you apply it in. So you're still the solution in terms of you doing the work. But when I don't want you to say the answers are within, meaning you have to come up with them. You don't come up with the answer. I know, but one of my jobs is people say things. I don't know what people out there are going to think of what you said. I want to clarify, repackage.
Thank you.
Because the answers are here. The answers are from here, from above. Okay, the solutions are from outside, the information that you need. Applying it, though, is you. The outside isn't doing the work. You just need the information. You need the process. You need to understand what to do, but you have to do the doing, right? Okay, but I don't want you to think you have to come up with the answers in yourself. Now, as far as figuring out the problem, yeah, you're gonna have to look in the mirror, look in yourself, dig underneath, and maybe get counseling. That's what therapists do often enough, is help you dig under to figure out what the problem is, okay? And that's what I do a lot in my counseling. But those answers are inside of you. They're not outside, okay? Those answers are in you. All right, thank you.
So no, I appreciate you clarifying that and repackaging that, because that's exactly what I intended to say. And so, Rabbi, I was thinking about Cain, right? At some point you were talking about how a couple of verses that talk about hating, like everyone hating his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has an everlasting life staying in him. And then, so it's all about, it has to do with what we are allowing in our minds and in our hearts, because he hated him before he committed the act of killing him, right? I mean, he was...
Well, look, we could take it in lots of directions, but he didn't hate his brother first. He hated what his brother made him feel, and because he blamed his brother. I mean, he really didn't hate Abel just for being Abel. He hated that God liked Abel's offering, didn't like his. Instead of owning his problem, he directed it outside. We all tend to do that at times. Blame something that's not actually to blame, okay? But I need to speed up from you because I'm running out of time here, and I'm probably not going to get back to you, okay?
My question really about that was, can you expand on what then would be to hate your brother? Thank you.
Well, it's just directing negative emotions towards your brother for things that really are not your brother. Now, if it's something that your brother actually did, then you should be seeking to resolve, understand, to sit down with. Like it says, go. If you have a lot against your brother, go to your brother. Okay, the idea of going to your brother. Okay, but that's how do we deal with negative feelings towards another person in the body? Or anybody outside the body. How do you deal with your negative stuff? Go back to the forgiveness teaching, which is about releasing all that, okay? But then how do I still interact with the person? Well, maybe you need to sit down with them and figure out if it's something you can actually resolve. If it can't be resolved, you might need to set up some boundaries, but let go of the negative feelings. Because otherwise, now you're hating your brother, okay? Okay? I may not feel safe to be in front of you because after working it out with you, I realize that you're not ready to work it out, or I'm not, whatever it is, but I'm not gonna hate you. I'm gonna let go of all that negative stuff. It's not easy to do. That's why these are all Yeshua level things. We're supposed to be elevating to those things, okay? He did not call us to do things human beings just naturally can do. He's calling us to stuff higher than that. Okay? Love, joy, peace, patience. Yeah, not the way human beings do it. Loving an enemy. Okay, that's Yeshua level. Joy in trials. Yeshua level. You see what I'm saying? These are not expecting you to do things on the below level. We all do that naturally enough. Everything's wonderful, we love, joy, whatever. Those are easy enough to do, right? Everything's going smoothly, peace. How do you have peace when all nonsense and chaos and confusion is breaking out all over the place, okay? These are all trying to elevate us or expecting us to make the effort to elevate to his level. All right, does that make sense?
I've been thinking about it over there, and you were talking about the part of where, like, trying to make up for your past by doing, like, nice things for other people, like the thing we talked about in counseling. Generally, how does one stop doing that? As in, like, because I'm starting to realize, like, when I go to help someone, it may not be, I may be stunting their growth, or I may be pushing my growth back, or it may not be the thing I'm supposed to do, but I can feel and sense, and I just don't want that hurt for them.
All right, so, no, I kind of get what you're saying. Okay, so here's the thing. And Nate's coming up next. As a nurse, he can tell me if I'm wrong about this. Generally speaking, I'm gonna say something sort of medical, okay? All right? You know, you can't, if you haven't had a bunch of sleep, you can't sleep more to make up for it. Like, okay? And he just agreed with that, okay? Because, like, you know, so it's kind of like this. If you've had a negative because you have something in your life, you can't fill that negative, okay, by just going out and doing extra positive. What you have to do is release the negative, deal with it, and do positive only because that's who you are now. You can't do it to compensate. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if there's something in your life that you feel like you need to compensate for, no, deal with it, resolve it, and just be this new person that does these things in a different way. But you can't do something to make up for something. What you do is you deal with that, and now this is the new you. The new you does these nicer things and finds these opportunities and isn't doing it to feel better about themselves, isn't doing it to fill a void in themselves, is doing it because it's who you are now, okay? No, it's not both. It's both, but it's not both. What it is the one is clouding the other, okay? Because even if the new you is the generous person who wants to do nice things and everything else, but there's still a part of you that's also trying to fill a void and feel better about it, then it's still clouded, it's still tainted, it's not pure, okay? Resolve the one so that you can do the other one in a clean way, where it's not mixed with that other stuff, okay? So just like, you know, if you've not gotten enough sleep for a couple of days, well, sleeping 25 hours or whatever is not gonna fix your problem, all right? Okay? So getting a good rest will make you feel better, but you can't gain the sleep you lost. Well, the same thing here. Whatever the thing you're compensating for, it can't be compensated for. What you can do is make the adjustment so you're no longer that person that was doing those things, that now you're the new person doing it differently. Okay? So then your motivation is gonna be different when you're looking at the person you wanna help and you say, okay, maybe they really don't need this for me to help them. Maybe I need to let them go through that stuff because I'm not pushing my agenda of needing me to feel better because I'm doing something for you. So I can think more clearly because I'm not filtering it through this need to be helpful, this need to feel value. That's part of it. A lot of you have a problem where you get your value through performance, okay? Okay, this is another thing that comes up a lot in counsel, okay? You gotta have value in being, not in performance. Your performance is pleasing in his sight. He doesn't value you because you do things pleasing in his sight. He values you because you're you, okay? Stop needing to find value through performance. Do the performance because you value yourself, you value the other person, and so you do it out of a different drive, not to create value where they, you know, this is the only way someone will think I'm worth something. Okay? I know I'm worth something, and you know what? I think I'd like to share with somebody else too, or whatever. That's a different way of looking at it. Not like if I don't have some way for some, it's about validation. You're not gonna validate me unless I do something pleasing for you. Okay? Did I answer your question? I hit the third button? Oh, there you go.
The nerve button.
Okay, I hit that, okay.
Sorry, I'm trying
right.
to read my second question now.
Because Abba doesn't need you to do anything to validate you. He says, look, I give you choices. One's gonna lead to death, one's gonna lead to life. I love you either way. I'd like you to choose life. And how do you choose life? Choose the things that are pleasing in my sight, which, by the way, those are the things that are good for you. So very unselfishly, he wants you to do things that are actually good for you, all right? But that doesn't validate you, it just validates how you see him. Your performance validates how you see him, it doesn't validate you, okay?
And to go along with that, and I think you kind of answered it, but I'm trying to rewire my brain, so I may have to have you say it again. When you were talking about throwing the ball and not catching the ball, and like I pictured when you said, I need all you guys to line up or whatever, and I'll throw the ball at you. I saw that ball coming, and then it's like, I saw, like, for an example, I just saw her. So Olivia next to me, the ball's going at her. Well, I don't want her to get hit. I'll just take the ball. And I understand that's not the right answer, but like, how do I do that? Because like I said, it goes to the first question. I don't want them to get hurt. I don't mind getting hurt for anyone else. Let me just take the darn ball.
Hold on. You're mixing things together. There are things that, when it talks about laying down your life for your brother, well, you may want to jump in front of their bullet that's coming, so to speak, okay? And that is love for somebody. To offer your life for somebody else, or to step in front of something, okay? But you also have to be able to ask the question, is this something that really I need to get involved in? Because maybe it's something that they need to handle and they need to do. And that takes wisdom, which comes with experience and time to have that level of wisdom, okay? Because you got to do that with your children. If you don't let your children have things adverse happen to them, they'll never be able to handle the world they're going to live in. You can't protect them from everything. Now, there are some things because of their age that you should protect them from. At different ages, certain things. But you're gonna have to allow them to go through some stuff, because if you're so afraid to let them go through stuff, they will never be ready to handle stuff on their own, right? That takes wisdom to know which is which, okay?
I think for me, it's because I've been through so much difficult stuff that it's hard for me to figure out what's very, very, very difficult that most people don't ever experience to hard stuff, but it's normal, okay, hard. I think that's where it's difficult for me.
It's not just you.
That
I mean, I think most people ruin their kids to whatever degree, overcompensating for stuff that happened to them, okay? I don't want my kid to go through what I went through. And that actually doesn't help very much. It makes it really worse, okay? It's an overcompensation for, I got treated this way, so I'm gonna make sure my kid doesn't go through all that. And then you really wreck the deal worse, okay? Maybe you should just not do to them what your parents did or whatever, but don't overcompensate for it. Because what's happened is you've globalized, my parents' type of correction abused me, so I won't do any correction, instead of just correcting in a better way. You understand what I'm saying? So you swung the thing way the other way by overcompensating, okay? They did it badly, I'm not gonna do it at all. Okay? My parents gave me nothing, I'm gonna give my kids everything. Again, not gonna help. It's gonna ruin things, okay?
Well, I wasn't gonna come up, but Sarah Beth said something about how you encourage us to make changes, and we were watching the Level Up. That's been our thing, like on the last few Shabbats, is watching the Level Up. And I was saying to Dawn, I said, you know, that's one thing I like about Rabbi Steve, is he's not just teaching Torah, which is very important, but we've been in this walk long enough to know that we should know how to do this. He's challenging us to be better people in the fullness of what God created us to be. It's not just everything's, not that you're not teaching Torah, and because you are teaching Torah, which is, there's a lot of things that you said today out of Thessalonians and in Matthew where it got me sparked about the beware of false prophets teaching.
Right.
And when you brought up Christmas and Easter, it's like now that is like a kid's game for us now. We know that. That's all stuff that we know. And I was thinking about how dangerous it is now, because there's a lot of Torah teachers out there who will give you the pearls and the little things that will spark the interest or distract us in a way to be like, ooh, and and all that. But they're not pushing for us to do better. They're not challenging us to step out and be more obedient and figure out how is this walk of ours going to be pleasing to our Father at the end. Not just the do's and the don'ts, but just in everyday life, and how he created us to be, the fullness of who we're supposed to be in him. And I had a question for you, and this is something that's been rolling around in my mind concerning about all the the teachers that are out there that are teaching Torah without the obedience part to it, that we know that we have physical pork. We know that we have pigs that we're not supposed to eat or ingest the, see, I can take correction.
They couldn't see that, but
I do.
I pointed to my mouth for him to move the microphone.
But I'm starting to see that there's a level of pork being distributed throughout the body of Messiah, not necessarily the meat or the pig, but this is just something that I've been rolling around in my head, especially with the beware of false prophets thing, but there's a level of pork that is out there.
Right.
Would you, does it strike you in any way about spiritual pork?
Well, look, I mean, the problem that you have is that there's always been, and that's what they're being warned about here, people that will teach a mix, okay? And so, which is why you most often will get on a Saturday Messianic, whatever you would want to call it, Hebrew, whatever it is, you're going to get a lot of Christianity understanding in a somewhat Torah observant format, okay? So, and even the Torah observance is going to be filtered through some of that. And that's why you're going to get this mix. And then with the mix, the worst thing, it's easy to identify things that are just wrong. Like if you do a little research, you realize Christmas did not come from anything to do with the Bible. Easter did not come from anything with the Bible, okay? You can find those, you can find out where Sunday worship came from and how the Catholic Church did all that, whatever. But some of these other things are much more subtle, and they're comfortable if you came from something and you like that, it's still something you can do even though it's not scripturally correct. And so, which is why you get very much the Messa-Costal or the Messa-Baptist or the Messa whatever, okay? Because you're getting that doctrine brought into somewhat of the mechanics that it's on Saturday. And that becomes really a mess, where again, they're all about these same positional things, and it's not about elevating you into. They're not looking at you growing. They're still looking at the outside doing everything to you or for you. That came out of Christianity, okay? And so yes, these are things that are essentially like pork, not good for you. So if you want to call it that, okay? And people are, I think it's still a good metaphor from the idea that the people are consuming it. Okay, there's not physical food, but they're consuming it as spiritual food, as food. And they're listening to these guys out there who just unfortunately, as Peter says about writings that people do with Paul's writings, that the unlearned and untrained twist to their own destruction. They don't know that they don't know. But yet they still have a microphone and they're still out there with the bully pulpit and people are listening. And some of them, because they came out of kind of experience in ministry before, which had a certain level of ability to speak, they sound reasonably polished and they can get your attention and they sound like they know what they're talking about and all that kind of good stuff. And it's easy to get led astray. But by the way, everybody we're reading about here, whether it's Peter, whether it's James, whether it's John, whether it's Yeshua himself, they're all telling you this problem was happening then, it's still happening now. People are sounding like they know what they're talking about and they don't know what they're talking about. Not that they're completely off, because if they're completely off, you would not be listening to it. You would recognize, well, that's completely off. Because every one of you has pulled up a teacher and started listening going, But other ones you're like, I don't know, maybe, because they're saying something that kind of worked and made some sense, and maybe they were even right about, but then it gets mixed in with some other stuff that next thing you know, you're hooked, and now you're listening and buying into that.
Guilty.
Okay?
I've repented. Anyway, so when I was reading about when you brought up about
bring it back closer.
Talked about loving your brother, and by this you will know, they will know you by your love for one another, and that really struck, because when we love our brother, we're willing to go to lengths to try to reconcile. When we start, even if we don't totally agree on something, but we work on ourselves and then we figure, okay, how can we readjust to reconciling with each other? Would you say that a person who just avoids that completely, basically what they call ghosting now, would you say that is part of being a believer, so to speak? If you have the heart to just negate your brother without really trying to figure out, hey, is there any kind of a relationship? It doesn't have to be like we're buddy-buddy.
No, I know what
Should
you're
be able
saying. I know what you're saying. Look, the problem is, I would, all of us would be like, oh, absolutely. And I'm going to say no from this point of view. It's because of psycho-emotional brokenness that they're not capable, okay? So I don't know that that means that they're this or that or the other thing. They need healing, that they're not capable of dealing with adversity with a brother. And most of us have those moments where we really have a problem with that. And it's not because we're not trying to walk this out and not trying to do our vertical thing. We're just not psycho-emotionally able to handle a conflict or a confrontation with a brother in ways that they hurt your feelings, you hurt their feelings, somebody did something, whatever it is. So that Matthew 18 thing never gets done, where it says, go to your brother, okay? It just doesn't ever happen. And it's because which is why I think he's called me, and I wish he would call a lot more guys who have microphones, to help people use scripture to mature the damaged psycho-emotional part of our being so that we can be mature enough. Yes, I am saying it's an immaturity that we have in our psycho-emotional part, okay? I'm not saying you're a baby. We just have these things that are not mature enough to handle adversity. And because we don't handle it well, it's easier to ghost somebody. It's easier to just shut them off or cut them off. And worse, we start bad-mouthing them to everybody else we know because we want everybody else to think about them the way we do. That's a lack of maturity, okay? So I wouldn't say they're not in the body. I'm saying that they're still sucking a thumb, like Paul said, you guys are choking on the milk, okay? He was having that problem too. You know, it's his brothers, like, yeah, there's divisions among you. It doesn't surprise me. It's because you guys are not ready to handle stuff yet. So I think that this is part of, again, where he's not showing up anytime soon because we're just not ready, you know? And all those people want to say he's coming next week or next month or whatever it is, they're just wrong, okay? They're just wrong, okay? Because there's just no evidence that we're ready, all right? I could be wrong, let him show up. I don't mind being wrong with that. I'm never going to tell you, I'm never going to be wrong naming a date and saying he is coming, that's for sure. You'll never hear me do that, okay? All right, I don't mind being wrong saying, I think we're not ready, because I think he wants me to tell you you're not ready so that you work harder, all right?
Last thing, and this was out of Matthew 24, referring to the pork and how we talked about our hearts being the seat, possibly that the lawless one, and dealing with our own issues. So when you see the abomination that lays waste, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, set up on the set-apart place, if it is within our own hearts, or those things. He who reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judah flee to the mountains, or the Torah. Let him who is in the housetop not come down to take whatever is out of his house. I was wondering if you could compare that to when there's that other verse that talks about the lawless one standing in the temple as well. How if we're ingesting the mixed abominations of, you know, if we're taking, let's say we're taking Torah, we're just teaching Torah, but we're not bringing in the power of what the Torah is in order to change us, and we're absorbing all of that, and we're letting it sit on our hearts and not really coming to the place of bowing to its power, bowing to the power of the authority that is given to Yeshua. That in itself is allowing that abomination to be set up in our holy place, in our set apart place within our hearts.
Sure.
Then we are actually that lawless one. We are allowing that lawless one to become. We are absorbing that. We are becoming that lawless person, whether we realize it or not. We're submitting to that rulership because we're allowing that. If I'm making any sense.
You are, and I think that's a reasonable picture there. You know, I think that kind of works. I'll go with that. Yeah. No, good job. I think that works. Yeah. Look, but understand for all of us here, okay, Again, group therapy, okay? Part of our problem is we're not mature enough to A, be able to tell somebody, well, here's the real thing. We don't believe each other. So if I go to you and tell you, you hurt me, better I should say, I felt hurt by what you did. Because if I say you hurt me and you don't think you did anything to hurt me, you're gonna argue with me. But if I go to you and say, what you did hurt me, I'm not accusing you, I'm just saying I felt hurt. You'll argue instead of just understanding I really felt hurt. Because if you don't think I should have, you'll argue with me. And then if you try to explain that you really didn't intend to cause hurt, I won't hear you either. And the next thing you know, we're not getting anywhere. This is part of the problem, Nate, that we're talking about, okay? Because we can't go to our brother because our brother won't hear us and we won't hear them. Because I've already convinced what they did and what I think motivated them. They're convinced what's motivating me, and nobody's believing each other, all right? Nobody's listening and believing. Husbands and wives have this big problem too. They're fighting and everything else. It's like, part of what I do when I marriage counsel is, a big part of it is I just make sure they're listening to each other. Like, let's say she says something, the wife says something, and I'll look at the husband. Did you hear that? Do you understand that that's what she's saying and what she's feeling and everything else? I'm not saying, did you agree with it? I'm saying, did you hear it? Did you receive it? Then he says something, I look at her, did you hear that? Did you understand where he's coming from? Not did you agree with it, but did you receive that? I'm trying to get them to, I said, look, this is only gonna work if you're gonna believe the other person. You don't have to agree with them. That's their truth. Their reality is how they felt about it. You have to receive that, okay? Not argue with it because you disagree with them feeling that way. Well, I don't understand why you got so upset. No, you don't, but that's okay. Can you accept it? Well, I don't understand why that hurts your feelings. It wouldn't hurt my feelings. Well, I'm not you, okay? But that's why we can't go to each other, because we can't have that conversation. We just can't. We can't receive, because the other person is going to say a bunch of stuff that I'm going to say, well, I don't understand why you're that way. I don't see why that you reacted that way, because I wouldn't have, whatever. So how can you even have that conversation? We're not mature enough yet. We have to work on that emotional immaturity, that emotional growth, okay? Because that's why we don't have the conversation, because we don't want to go into that place. We don't want to deal with that stuff. Now, when I say deal with that, I'm saying it's not that we don't want to deal with the truth. We don't want to deal with the fight that's going to happen, because we don't expect to ever be able to deal with the truth. We just expect it to be a fight. We don't want to deal with the fight. So easier to ghost you and ignore you and whatever than actually deal with you, because we think it's just going to be this. And it probably will be until you get to the point where I can hear you, whether I agree with you or understand why you felt that way, but I can hear it. But then you have to hear me too. So if you want me to hear that you were hurt, you have to hear me if I'm telling the truth and saying I never meant to do that. That wasn't my intention. Now we can start to get someplace. Okay, I will accept that you were hurt. Can you accept that I really didn't intend that? All right? Now we can start somewhere. But if we're only filtering through our own filter of, well, I don't know why you got hurt by that. It's so dumb. Why would you get hurt by that? But that's what we do, okay? Why were you so that? I was like stupid. I was like in little nothing, and you got so upset and you blew up and well, to them it was different. It triggered something. It had something to do with their traumas, their whatever it is, that you can't relate to. Group therapy, okay? All right, but this is what I deal with every single week with most of the counselings. People are still having a hard time processing past traumas to then be able to deal with current things that are happening, because they can't deal with it through the past traumas. And so they can't hear each other, and they absolutely they think everybody's lying. And what I mean by that is, if you say something that doesn't line up with what I already believe about you, or about the way you should have reacted, whatever it is, I can't receive that because it doesn't match. So you must be lying. Nobody wants to be called a liar, especially if you're trying to have an intimate, like it's a husband, wife, it's a close friend or something, and you're trying to heal something that's intimate like that. Who wants to be intimate with you if you think I'm lying, right? How can we be close if you're saying that you're invalidating my feelings and my perspective as just being lies? It doesn't make sense to you, that's fine. I'm okay with you telling me, well, I don't know how to relate to that because that's not the way I would have reacted, but I understand that's how you felt. So what I do in the counselings is I make sure that each person agrees to validate the other person. By validate doesn't mean that I agree with that, why you felt whatever. I agree that that's how you felt. I will validate and receive that you reacted that way because you saw it that way and you felt that way. Everybody has to validate the other person. That doesn't mean I'm saying you were right to feel that way. Maybe you were, maybe you weren't. It's not my point necessarily at the beginning. The beginning is I have to accept and validate that that is how you felt. That is how you received it. It's how you perceived it. It's how you responded to it because of whatever. And I make husbands and wives, whoever it is that's in front of me, they have to validate that. Can you understand that that's actually how they felt? At this moment, it doesn't matter if you agree with them, like they should have felt that way. That's irrelevant. That's how they felt. Now you get to say how you felt. And we have to validate that. Everybody needs that level of validation. I need you to know that you hurt me. Even if you never intended to and had no idea that you did it, I was hurt. Well, I didn't mean to do that. Instead of saying, I don't know why you were hurt. Because that's normally what we do. Well, I don't understand why you were hurt. That's stupid. No, calling me stupid for being hurt is stupid. Okay? That's never going to get us anywhere. All right? I want to read one last thing before we close. I know that we're a little bit long here, but this is a real good one. And this sort of came up, I don't remember who brought it up, but somebody reminded me, okay, as I bring things up and start a reminder, and even I guess Nate said, hey, some of these things are like child's play at this point. We've learned these things already. Look, in 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 10, he says, for this reason, brothers, all the more do your utmost to make firm your calling and choosing. For if you are doing these matters, you shall never stumble at all. Okay, that's part of it, but listen to what he says. Okay, for in this way, an entrance into everlasting reign of our Master, Yeshua Messiah, shall be supplied to you. So an entrance is supplied to you, not a guarantee, not a whatever, but there's a way. I am the way, he says, right? But look what he says. And I so intend to remind you of these things again and again, though you know them and have been established in the present truth. That's my job. Okay, that's my job, to continuously remind you of stuff that you should already know, okay? You should already know. He said, but I think it's right as long as I'm in this tent to stir them up by a reminder. That's the role of a ministry. Part of it is to teach, but for those of you that have already been taught, it's just to remind you. Hey, our job here is to elevate. That's why I called it the Level Up program. We have to level up to Yeshua's level, okay? I mean, that's the whole purpose of life is for you to actually go to that level. That's a different level. The above level is not the below level, okay? And some of you are like, well, I have the Spirit. Okay, well, do you have it on the above level? Love, joy on that level, not love, joy on a human level? Okay, well, I have love, really? Do you love your enemies? No. Okay, well, you failed. Okay, go back to school. Okay, you're not there yet, all right? Do you have joy in your trials? That's what, James said, I have joy in my trials. Sounds pretty crazy to me, but if you have that level, remember, it's the Holy Spirit, it's the Spirit from the above. If you're manifesting that, now you're in line with that. Well, now you can have joy in a trial. See, it's a whole different level. And that's all I'm here to do is try to inspire you, strive for that level. Because he says that in this way, an entrance into the everlasting reign of our Master and Savior Yeshua Messiah shall be richly supplied to you. Okay, 1 John, we read this in chapter 3, says, we do not know what he's like, except that we know that when he shows up and we'll be changed, we'll see him as he is, then we'll get it. And I've always told you, you're not going to be changed into what he is until you've actually changed inside to what he is. And that's what every ministry should be trying to get you to do. Inspire you and give you the tools and understanding of what it looks like to change into what he is, instead of looking at he's doing everything. The devil's the bad guy, Yeshua's the good guy, and you're just, just along for the ride, okay? You just had to recognize that they exist. Oh, good, I recognize it. So the devil gets the blame, he gets the credit, that's it. What is the point? There's just no point if that's the case. Then you might as well use rocks, okay? I mean, what is the point? Why does he need you? What do you bring to the mix? Okay, why you then? All right, some of you are like, I was thinking the same thing. I don't know why you picked me. All right, well, because you are going to demonstrate the character to put in the effort. It says here, for this reason, all the more do your utmost. Don't be complacent. Don't just be along for the ride. Don't be an NPC. all right? Play the game with your utmost, all right? Live, don't exist. Live with your utmost, with passion and compassion and all the good stuff that's in there, all right? Amen? Amen. All right.